Hi, good morning. We're here with Victoria Foster from We Are Vee. How are you doing, Victoria?
I'm very well, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well too. Thank you. Thank you
Good.
very much for joining
Good.
us this Monday morning.
I know. Nice and early. Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. So, if we could start off and you could give us a little bit of background as to who it is that you are, what it is you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
Sure. Okay. So I've been an independent business consultant now for about 20 years, predominantly working in private practices for dentistry.
Mhm.
Um, it's something that evolved. I changed my career. I was working in law for 10 years, and I just had a change in my
Yeah.
life. And I went into working for a practice for a guy I knew and helped him with his business. And then kind of did lots of retraining and ended up in dentistry for 20 years, which I love. It's forever evolving, and there's always something new to learn.
Mhm.
So for my own kind of background, my business was set up predominantly because I spent a lot of time doing business management in a particular practice, and I'd set up lots of prototypes and see how I can make this better, how can I make it work, how can I grow this business, which inevitably was built to sell.
Yeah.
So I kind of set up all these prototypes, and then I realized that I was using skills from other people I'd met in the industry that I needed to do different types of work. So that would be like the marketing of the practice, or the HR of the practice, or the compliance of the practice, the finance of the practice. And I realized that, there was columns in the business that every business needs. And I used to think, how can I bring people together to work with these practices to turn them around fairly quickly? And that's how I started my business, really with the contacts that I had. And I wanted to set a business up that people could use, from startups right through to, to
Mhm.
experienced businesses that may just have holes in the bucket, and they may need just help with compliance or their team
Sure.
or the marketing. And I just wanted to be able to offer that as one company, because so often companies use different companies for, say, their marketing, different
Yeah.
companies for this. And what happens is their designer doesn't maybe get to speak to who's built their brand and logo, to the
Mhm.
person who's going to develop their website. So then there's this kind of mishmash of,
Sure.
brand, and it
Yeah.
kind of gets diluted, and it's so frustrating. So I kind of wanted to be able to take that from the cradle to the grave with a company, and somebody could come to me and say, Victoria, I want to start this business and I need your help. So that's how
Brilliant.
We Are Vee came about.
That's awesome. So, in terms of that, I mean, if I was setting up a dentist practice, I'm already sold. I want to come and use
Yeah,
your
you could come
services
and
for
have
me.
a chat with
Yeah.
me. What I've learned in 20 years, I
Yeah,
can tell
that's
you
it.
in
And
half
you
an hour. So
put it in a one
that's
for all
that's the
solution.
thing. Yeah.
It's brilliant. And what you spotted a gap in the market there? What was the spark to say, I want to do this for myself, or I believe that this is the right thing for me?
Yeah, I think I kind of think probably for me it was very much, I'd go on courses, and I'd meet other practice managers, and they just didn't seem to kind of want to step outside their comfort zone with anything. They were all very formal in like 80s jackets, and
Yeah.
and like, yeah, I like to make my, I'm going to make them cry because I'm not having this. I was like, whoa, no, we're not going to be doing that. That's
Yeah.
not great management. And I kind of realized that, there's so much stuff I can offer
Mhm.
with the skill stacking that I've spent my life doing, that made me pretty unique.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There was one practice I went into working. He was having a torrid time with his staff. In fact, the PM walked actually the day I walked in to help. So pretty much he was left, abandoned ship.
Yeah.
But because of my skill set, I was able to just say, that's not a problem. I'll sort the payroll. We'll sort the staff. We'll sort the HR issues that we're having. And I could step into all of these and wear all these hats. And I
Yeah.
found that actually I'm quite unique, because
Fantastic.
I don't think there's a lot of people out there that could do that.
Well,
So
one of the questions that I have is what makes you unique, but is it the service that you offer?
yeah, so kind of my company has two kind of things. From a personal perspective, I guess I drive my company,
Mhm.
but I deal with all the business management of my company. So from that, it's my skill set has just been built over the years, doing lots of courses,
Mhm.
you know, over the years, and just skill stacking. Even actually, I didn't even realize that I was skill stacking from such a young age. It started back in the law firm,
Yeah.
where I take annual leave and I would go off to Primer Studios and I would spend a week doing commercials for Max Factor, doing makeup artistry and styling. And then I'd go back to my desk job in the law firm, and that's kind of how it
Yeah.
was. What I didn't realize was that all the while I was doing what I considered my hobby.
Mhm.
I was actually building friendships and knowledge in the hair and beauty industry. So I was working with these amazing photographers, these amazing stylists, and they were making me look at imagery in a different way.
Mhm.
You know, so when I came to do business management practices, and I have to kind of portray them and as their shop windows, their website, their imagery is so powerful. So I like to get the dentist working in their surgery. I wanted to bring them to life. I wanted to video them. I wanted to look at how the photography was, because, you know, years ago there wasn't anything like this. It was all very blue. Dentistry was all very blue, very boring, and you know, but the way life is now, people's expectations are higher.
Mhm.
And I think in private dentistry, you know, people's expectations are much higher because they expect a better service than they're going to get with the NHS.
Yeah, true.
You know, and you know, that's what, and it's very difficult working with practices that did both NHS and private, because it's
Yes.
like, well, how do we differentiate with this one waiting room?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
people paying privately?
Yeah.
How, you know, why should they be private? And it's, you know, you came across these problems that, you know, I had to work out. And anywho, so yeah, all these skills, all these things, they've all come to light and they've all come to play in my life. You know, the law, all the compliance was so heavily regulated, you know,
Yes.
that I can make light of it. It's heavy going, it's like treacle. And you've got to understand, in a practice, you have staff that have come straight from school to be nursing staff who are particularly academic as such. They find that one big yawn. And then you've got the dentists who are particularly academic. So I have to deliver training that kind of, you know, gets them both involved without half the room falling asleep. And, you know, it's challenging all the time, but you know, I love what I do. So it's just easy now.
And is it just you there in terms of consultancy? Do you have a team of people doing what you do? How does it?
Generally, yeah. So with myself, I tend to do the business management. I tend to be able to go into a practice very quickly. I can usually, more often than not, read the landscape fairly quickly. So I know where these holes in the buckets are, where they need to improve their business, where they need to invest a bit of money, where they need to stop spending money.
Sure.
You know, and work out what's working and what isn't working. Then obviously I have staff that obviously come and help with compliance. Sometimes that can be really difficult. So there's a lot of paperwork. So qualified nursing staff will help go in to do audits and things like that for me. And then when it comes to all of the design work, all my design team then work together. So we can build brands and logos and everything, websites that you need. But I go in first, I'll see the businesses and I'll decide what they need. Then I go back to base and then I say, right, this is the client, these are the problems, how are we going to work together to make it right.
So what's your business journey been like to date then, Victoria?
It's been challenging.
You mentioned challenging before. I was going to see if the challenge word came up again.
Yeah, like, so it's challenging in that I think for anybody who sort of goes and wants to set their own business, I think there was always so much fear. And I always say, you know, what you fear doing most is what you most need to do. It's a quote from Tim Ferriss. And it's one that I remember from way back. So what I did was, I couldn't afford to set up my own business straight away. I didn't have stacks of money to give up my job and you know, give it up completely. And to be honest with you, I didn't really want to, because I felt like I needed to stay in practice. So I was a business manager in a practice in Wetherby, for a successful practice that is still very close to my heart. And the principals there allowed me to reduce my hours. So I could go and get more experience consulting
Sure.
for other people. And they knew I wanted to grow in that way. And, you know, when you reach a ceiling in your career, you kind of can do it with your eyes shut when you're running a practice and you've got it right.
Yeah.
Even though I set lots of prototypes up, but actually they allowed me to go out and meet other practices and help them, which I was forever grateful for them for. So I felt like I was keeping my foot in with them because of all the compliance and the regulation you have to keep up to date with.
Yeah.
But I was still allowed to go and help others. So I slowly built up my career that way. I did courses as well in management and marketing along the way. And then I went to work for a dental consultancy. I don't know if you're the same, but I always feel like I have to have the qualification in the bag before I'm able to have a conversation with somebody and feel like I'm quite confident that I'm telling you what I know.
Is that the way you kind of get your confidence?
Yeah, and I think the more you do something, the more confident you become, and you can help. And it doesn't matter what questions people throw at you, you can usually answer them really well. And if you can't, you know, you say, listen, I've not come across this before, you know, let's find this out together.
Yeah.
So I went to work for another dental consultancy, and I ended up heading up a lot of their marketing, which I really enjoyed. And again, with them, I worked with more practices. I went over to Ireland and I met with a guy there, and I won't forget, he ran a big practice plan, which is a bit like Den Plan here, but over in Ireland. And I always remember him stopping me after a presentation, you know, and he was asking me about what I was going to do with my life, you know, my career, what's my dreams. And he just said to me, you know, Vee, when are you going to stop getting the badges? You know, you're already there.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep doing another course or another, you know, to kind of
justify.
Yeah, like you can do your job, you know, you can do your job. So so that really resonated actually. And I think a lot of people feel they have to have all of this alphabet after their name, you know, all these qualifications, when really I think a lot of what you do has nothing to do with the actual job itself. It's to do with you as a person.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that resonated with me. And then at that point, I realized that actually I need to start my own business. I know enough people. I know people that will come with me on this journey and be there with me, and if I can work with really well. And, you know, 20 years on, they're still here and we're still great friends. So, yeah.
Good stuff.
And that's pretty much my journey, really. I did give up. I gave up doing business management in my own company for 1.5 years, because, and it was a big decision to do this. But the corporates that were dental corporates are buying out the private practices. They were out with their checkbooks and they were buying them up fast. So as a consultant, I was quite concerned that, you know, wow, what all these practices are not going to need people like me, you know, who go in with 5 hats on doing their HR and compliance license, because they have people in their head offices, they have teams of people doing all these things. So little people like me, suddenly, you know, you're kind of obviously, because you've got all these big companies coming in. But I realized that, again, I didn't have any experience with these corporates and I didn't know how they were operating. So I have this, you know, interesting how they set their systems of what they're up to, how do they do this?
Yes.
With all the practices that they acquire and the people within them, because having worked in practice from grassroots, I realized that, you know, how does it affect the people, the teams that are in these practices when they're bought out by these big corporates? So I went to work for one. That was growing. Yeah, it was eye-opening. I was looking after probably about 35 practices at the same time on me. It was really busy. It was challenging. It was frustrating. But, you know, I got a lot of learning from it because COVID hit when I was there. And so I was in Mayfair in London, the head offices. I was looking after the practices on Harley Street. It was such a shock that overnight, practically everything went digital. So from a marketing perspective, and from going into practices, I realized I felt like I was working in IT. all of a sudden, I
Changed
did
your
the
career.
worst job I could possibly be doing. You know, I had to do Zoom, you know, I had to do all these things. And normally there's a tech team with you, you know, and
Yeah.
I can't work this, you know, this is happening. There was nobody, and you were literally on your own. And it was frustrating. And trying to speak with teams across a screen was very difficult, because for me, I like to go in and I can read people. The people for me are the most important thing.
Sure.
And I realize in all the years I've been doing dentistry now, I think, you know, people are the thing that drive me the most of all, and are the core reason a business succeeds. You know, it's all about the people. And trying to see them on a screen was really difficult. I couldn't get feedback. I had to do presentations where I couldn't see one face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and normally you need that recognition from somebody. Are they listening? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you able to implement this? Is this resonating with you? Nothing.
Didn't know.
It was just nothing. It was really hard, Mike. It was really hard. And I think anybody who went through that, it was really difficult, you know. I mean, from a kind of funny perspective, you got to see the real people, you know, in their home life and how they handled their children walking in when you used to see
cats coming onto the screen.
So that was character building. Anywho, but going to work for the corporate was great because I learned so much. My skills in digital, obviously, raised, listening skills, communication skills, having to adapt, you know, to a different way of working. Those skills will stay with me. And so I then left the corporate and I went back into private practice. And I took the learnings from those things. And and on we go.
So what does the future look like for you, Victoria? And what do you see as the challenges that you can predict?
Yeah, well, I mean, do you know, a lot of as much as we're in a digital era now, and you've got to keep up with it. You know, you've got to keep up with it. As much as maybe you kind of don't like all the digital side of things, there has to be an element of that in every business, you know. And I think you've just got to approach it in a different way. I mean, AI is going to be massive, you know. Sure. I read about this many years ago, and it will be huge in healthcare. And there'll be a lot of good reasons for AI. You know, like I think I read a book by a lady, and she was saying that, you know, we're all going to have a robot in our homes. You know, we're all going to have one, a bit like the Terminator. You know, we can be attached to the robot. You cried when it went. But it will be there, and they will be able to pick up on, you know, your voice. You know, for dementia patients, it will repeat things, you know, as many times as is required. You know, it's going to remind me, I mean, that it's amazing and it will be great. And in dentistry, obviously digitalized scanning is already happening. You know, it helps with the surgery. There's so many different things. So coming in. So for me, more learnings, more digitalized, but also there's still the old school stuff as well, you know, like the customer service and the patient journeys. And I will keep pushing those for practices for as long as I'm probably in dentistry.
You talked about learnings there.
Always. I'm obsessed. I actually am obsessed with audiobooks. I'm obsessed with books. I think that the world is full of amazing, inspiring people. And I think if you can take your learnings and take them back to your teams, it's just it's just wonderful, really.
So what's the biggest lesson you've learned to date since running your business?
You know, the biggest lesson for me was, I think, communication in the team and learning from people within the team. Like I always say, you're only as good as your weakest member of the team. You know, so growth mindset is really big for me in practice. Making sure that everybody understands what their role is, and that, you know, things can be talked out. When we're looking at implementing new systems, it's who does the job, involve them in the process, because then you feel part of it. There's no point me coming in going through, for example, I don't know, the decontamination. You know, if I do that job every day, how can we find better ways of doing things? And it's going to be coming from the staff that are doing it day in, day out. If you want to build great systems, you've got to involve the people who are doing the job every day, because they find the quickest ways of doing things or better ways of doing things. You know, and constantly inspire the team. You know, I want to hear from everybody what their ideas are.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a lot of people management. That's the one for me, really.
Stuff. So if someone came to you and asked for some advice starting up a business, what would that piece of advice be? Again, would it be reflective of what you've mentioned there about the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I think for anybody starting a business, the first steps are always the hardest. And everybody thinks they have to have everything in place to set up a business. They don't, because you learn along the way, and everybody's circumstances are different. So if you are in a situation where you can't give up your job fully, you know, reduce hours and start building it, make it real. You know, start talking to somebody like myself about how to start your business. Start looking at maybe building the brand. Look at writing the content for a website, which is what you're going to need. You know, think about how much those things are going to cost initially just to get the ball rolling.
Make it real.
The rest kind of takes its place. You know, it's really frustrating when people say, "Oh, I can't possibly start that," and you know they park it, but you know, you've got to keep chipping at it. I always say, keep chipping at the marble.
Yeah,
you know,
never give up.
Yeah, you've got to. I mean, and then you feel like you're making progress. You
That's
know,
it.
it's just that first step, and a lot of people have this analysis paralysis. I'm not good enough. I've not read enough. I've not done enough courses. You know,
yeah. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, but if there's anything I can say, it's just make a start. Take some steps to start developing something real, something tangible. Make a vision board. Talk to me about it. That's what I would say.
Great advice. So what inspires you to do what you do? I can hazard a guess from some of the things you've been saying, but you know, anything to reflect on for inspiration, say customers, your team, your family, your friends, or just, you know, for yourself, really. What's the inspiration there?
Yeah, well, you know, I like to make people smile, Mike.
It's a pretty good way to be in the dentist.
No, I just like to see people do well. You know, I always, people used to say she's the girl behind the brand. That's what I was called, because I'm really good at making other people look great. I get a lot of fulfillment out of that, and I love seeing people grow. You know, I always think you've been inspired by somebody, and I love it when people get to meet the people that inspire them. You know, or they've watched for years, and you get to see them meet those people. So yeah, I just think life is short. I read it not long ago, and it said, you know, if you live to 85, you live like 4,500 weeks. So I was thinking, how many have I got left? And when you put your life in perspective,
yes,
you haven't got long. So, you know, start your business.
Enjoy the moment, be present.
Exactly.
Start your business.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is there any latest news, just sort of finally to wrap up, because I think that's a lovely point to almost finish on. But yeah, if there's any latest news around what you're up to, or if it's simply a case of sharing your website, then by all means, please do that now.
Yeah, of course. My website is wearevee.co.uk. Please contact me if you do have any questions, or you're a bit stuck. This is what my company was set up for. So it's a one-stop shop for people to come to if they have questions about their business and they need some help, and they need maybe a little motivation sometimes to just take that initial step.
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Victoria.
Oh, thank you
very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. I just appreciate you sharing your experience for the benefit of others. So thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks, mate. Take care.